Hiya everyone, I hope you're all having a lovely day. Why do I say hiya everyone at every single video? Because I can't actually say everyone quick. You know, you get stuck on your own words and you're like, everyone. I always do that. Hiya everyone. Everyone. Never mind. If you're not from the UK and you don't know right now, Liverpool's gone into another lockdown. I said this a few weeks ago. I was like, oh, we're going back to lockdown. We had some new restrictions. Now they've got these tiers and we're in like the worst tier. It's a whole thing. I honestly can't keep track of what's going on. I'm very stressed. I'm breaking out. My skin's all dry. My lips are chapped. It's not a good time. I did my nails yesterday and they've all like chipped off. It's just not that fun, to be honest. I just want to get in the bath and just like come out for food or sit in with food. So today I thought I'd do one of the first, if not the first, case I ever listened to on YouTube. Rob Gavigan, is that how you say his name? He's changed his name recently, but I used to listen to his like top 10 videos and I used to love them. It was when I was walking from university into town and I'd listen to them, and I was walking past a hotel that I used to work at while I was listening to his like lowdown of this case, and I was just like, oh, and it just, I don't know, something sparked in me when I listened to that. This case is one of the more popular ones I've covered. A lot of people who are into true crime know about this, but people who aren't might not have heard about it before, so I thought I would cover it anyway. This is the case of Elisa Lam. Elisa was born on April the 20th in 1991 in Vancouver, Canada. Her parents, Yina or Yina, I don't know how to pronounce that name, I'm very sorry, and David moved over to Vancouver in Canada from Hong Kong, and they had a family restaurant called Paul's. She also had a younger sister called Sarah who she was really close to. Elisa was described as being level-headed and she had a really nice group of friends. She was a very caring person and she was very well liked. She even did quite a bit of volunteer work too. Elisa was enrolled in the University of British Columbia, and while it started alright, she found that she started dropping out of classes. She just wasn't doing very well mentally, so she was writing that she was really disappointed in herself on her blog. She'd kind of use it more as a journal, and then eventually she moved her blog to a Tumblr page, which is kind of like another blog, but it's more picture based. But she was saying that she was really disappointed in herself. But Elisa was diagnosed eventually with bipolar disorder and depression as well. She'd write quite openly about having these illnesses, and she wouldn't always be, you know, all doom and gloom about it. She would make jokes as well. When Elisa was 21 and she was still really mad at herself and missed all these classes, she decided that she needed a break and she was going to travel all around California. She was going to go by herself and travel to all the different parts on the bus or on the train. In January 2013, Elisa went to San Diego, and then shortly after, on January the 28th, she checked into the Cecil Hotel. The hotel was located on Skid Row and there were a lot of homeless people in the area. Her next stop was going to be Santa Cruz, and she was going to stay at the Cecil, which was called the Stay on Main at the time, for 3 nights. The Cecil Hotel was built in 1924 and it was originally like a really lovely, really kind of posh hotel for businessmen. But over time it had massively gone downhill, and to bring people in it started getting cheaper and cheaper until there was a lot of illicit activity, as it is described, going on there. It just wasn't a very nice place. It was just really minty, like no one really wanted to stay there anymore, but it was cheap. And I know that when I'm on holiday and I'm like, I'm not really going to be in the room, I don't really tend to care where I stay as long as it's like clean. I don't care what it looks like, do you know what I mean? So I'm sure Elisa felt the same. She checked into a room where she would be sharing with a couple of people because it was kind of like a hostel as well, it was that cheap. The Cecil Hotel had a history of suicides there, and it was nicknamed the Suicide. It was said that Richard Ramirez and a couple of other serial killers had stayed there, and also Elizabeth Short, aka the Black Dahlia, was last seen there or stayed there just before she died. There's like just a lot of connections to cases like the Cecil's, just like in the middle of all of these weird things that happened, and obviously the suicides. There were some murders that happened there. A lady jumped out of a window and landed on a pedestrian there. Because of this, American Horror Story based their hotel season on the Cecil Hotel. It's that famous for not being a very nice case that it was, you know, they based a whole season around that. Because of all the suicides and killings and all of its dark history, it was also said to be haunted, which isn't surprising, to be honest. When Elisa first got to the hotel, she was sharing a room with a few other people, but they complained of Elisa's odd behaviour and then she was given her own room. On January the 31st, Elisa had visited a bookstore and she'd been speaking to the manager there. She'd been asking about a book, seeing how heavy it'd be. She was buying presents. She was, you know, saying, oh, I'm going to travel with this, we need to make sure it's not too big. And then she went back to the hotel and that was the last time that she was seen. All through her trip, she'd been speaking to her family. She was really close with them, and obviously, like, she was only 21. I know she was an adult, but I know my mum and dad would be the same. I'd have to ring them like every 5 minutes to tell them that I was still okay. But when she didn't ring her mum and dad and they couldn't get in contact with her, they became massively concerned. I've seen reports that they called the hotel and I've seen reports that they called the LAPD. Either way, they were ringing to try and see if anyone had seen their daughter and to, you know, report that she wasn't in touch and they were worried that something had happened to her. She was due to check out on February the 1st, but she didn't, so the police were informed and Elisa's room was checked. There wasn't any sign of a struggle in Elisa's room, nothing was missing. Her purse, her watch and her laptop were all still there, so it wasn't like, you know, she'd been robbed and attacked. Everything was still there. The only thing they couldn't find was her phone, and she did write on her blog that she'd lost her phone and apparently she was borrowing a phone from a friend to keep in touch with her mum and dad, but I don't know if that was the lost one. Like, maybe she lost a second one. I'm not sure about the phone, like, quite honestly. There's a lot of mixed information and either way they couldn't find a phone. The police searched the hotel top to bottom, looking in all the rooms that they could. Emphasis on that because there were a few people who actually lived there permanently because it was so cheap. They just had an ongoing room that they'd pay for, so I don't think they were allowed to go in those rooms because people were permanently like living there. You'd need like a warrant to go in, so that was a bit complicated. They weren't able to search absolutely everywhere, but everywhere they could they looked and there was no sign of Elisa and absolutely no clues. They asked the staff that worked at the hotel and the people who were staying at the hotel if anyone had seen anything suspicious or there was someone, you know, they'd seen with her or hanging around her or following her, and there was nothing. No one had any reports of anything like that. People were really worried because the people who stayed at the Cecil Hotel weren't the nicest of people, and it wouldn't have been surprising if she had been taken and she was actually being kept in one of the rooms against her will. It was really scary and they were trying to find her as quickly as they could. On February the 6th, Elisa was fully a missing person. There were news reports going out to see if anyone had seen her. Her parents were, you know, appearing on the news. I don't think they spoke to anyone, but they were there and people were appealing for any information anyone had to see where Elisa had gone. Everyone they could question was questioned. The next thing they needed to look through was the CCTV from the hotel, and they spent hours looking through it to see if they could see her, and they eventually found her on a video of the lift or the elevator if you're not from the UK. And I'm going to put the footage in here, and bearing in mind it's not graphic, it's not jumpy, it's nothing like that. I wouldn't put that in a video, but it is very strange. Elisa gets into the lift and she starts pressing the buttons. It's like she's hiding from someone, but the lift doors don't close even though she presses it. A lot of people think that maybe someone was standing outside of the lift and that's why the doors wouldn't shut. But to me it looks like she's popping her head out of the lift to see if anyone is there and anyone is, you know, going to jump out at her. It looks like she's hiding from someone. released, and this just made the media go even more nuts for this case. Now it looked like Elisa was hiding from someone or something. With the paranormal side of the hotel, a lot of people were speculating that maybe she was being chased by something that wasn't human, that something was coming together, or was Elisa having a manic episode? She did suffer with bipolar disorder, and many people believe that this was a manic episode. Even with the release of the CCTV footage, there wasn't any more leads. There was nothing else that they could do. They'd looked everywhere, they'd spoken to everyone. There was no more videos to look at. They were just kind of at a dead end. Not much changed for 2.5 weeks until February the 19th. The hotel started getting complaints that the water that was coming from the taps was brown in colour, it had a weird smell, and it tasted really strange, like really sweet. I think the hotel thought it might just be a couple of rooms at first, but then they started piling up and they were getting worse over time. So they sent a maintenance worker up to the rooftop to go and look at the water tanks. The hotel had 4 water tanks, and they were about 8 feet tall and on top of concrete blocks, like so they were on a little platform, so a ladder was needed to get up to them. The maintenance worker, Santiago Lopez, went to have a look in the biggest water tank. He got his ladder, climbed up, and saw that the lid of the water tank was open, which it really shouldn't have been. And when he looked inside, he saw the body of Elisa Lam floating face up. She was naked and she was surrounded by her clothes and her shoes, which were just floating around her. Her room card and her watch were in there too. Now, it says her watch was found in her room, and it also says that her watch was found in the water tank. I'm just putting that out there, maybe she had two. Obviously this was an absolutely horrendous thing to happen, but the hotel workers were so confused as to how Elisa had got up to the rooftop without setting off the alarms, because apparently you had to have a key card to deactivate those alarms, and only about 2 or 3 people in the whole hotel had one. If the door that Elisa had taken up to the rooftop had been alarmed, it'd mean that one of the people from the hotel would have had to disarm it before opening the door. On the roof there was absolutely no clues whatsoever about how she'd got up there or how she got into the tank. Obviously a lot of people who were staying at the hotel, after hearing what had been discovered on the roof and realising the fact that they'd been drinking and bathing in water that had a decomposing person in it, they immediately checked out, and the Cecil Hotel got people to sign forms basically saying that they weren't going to sue them because they consumed the water themselves. I don't know if there was a miscommunication in the whole investigation, because a lot of people think that the lid was closed behind Elisa, which was, you know, a sign that someone had put her in there and then shut it, because if you're in the water below you're not going to be able to reach the top to pull it down on yourself. A lot of people assume that Elisa had been assaulted and then put in there with her clothes, and the lid had been shut and she'd just been left up there. But then the maintenance worker had said later on that the lid was open, and that's kind of how he knew that there was something that was a bit wrong, and that makes it look more like it was an accident. The autopsy was carried out on February the 21st, but it wasn't actually released until June. It was found to be an accidental drowning, then it was changed to couldn't be concluded, then it was changed back to accidental. But Elisa didn't have any signs on her that she'd been hurt or strangled or hit. She didn't have any marks on her body to show that she'd been attacked in any way. The only thing that stuck out to me, and this is on her autopsy report, which is available online, which I'll link in the description below, is that there was blood pooling in her bum, which might show that she'd been assaulted. But then other reports say that this is just what happened to the body when it'd been floating there for 2.5 weeks. It was just like a reaction that the body had. Her toxicology reports came back completely clear. There was medication that was found, you know, in her body. She was on quite a few different types of medication to deal with her illnesses, but apparently she wasn't taking all of these medications. So the people who worked at the hotel said that the roof was only accessed if you were to go through alarm doors, and I have fully told people this. I've fully been like, oh, but how did she get through these doors? And there was a video that came out of someone showing how easy it is to access the roof. Absolutely no alarm goes off in the whole video. I don't know who took that video. Maybe it was at a time when like the fire alarm had just gone off, so all the doors were unlocked and they were able to just easily get up to the roof. Maybe it was a worker who took that video. I've got no idea, but it's kind of weird that you can just walk up there, and to be honest, if they didn't have CCTV cameras working like barely anywhere, it wouldn't surprise me that that door wasn't alarmed as it should have been. Again, with the lid on the tank, a lot of places said it was really heavy, but then some reports came out saying, oh no, it was really light, like she could have just lifted it and got in. I was thinking of the theories that people have when they were researching it, and I'll get into the more kind of wacky ones in a second, but it really scared me to think that maybe she was having a manic episode. Maybe she just literally just like wanted to swim in there and got up and misjudged how far down the water was and got in, and then was just treading water for ages and couldn't get back out until eventually she ran out of energy. That is terrifying. A lot of people think that maybe it was a suicide and she did it deliberately and just got in, or maybe she started drowning and then was taking her clothes off to try and make herself lighter to get out. I don't know. Or did someone do this to her and has it just been really well covered up? A lot of people seem to think that it's really convenient that the CCTV cameras weren't on for a lot of the parts in the hotel, that maybe a worker did this to her and just erased the tapes, and that's maybe who she was hiding from or speaking to in the video that was taken from the lift. So since the video of Elisa came out, people have been sharing their theories online for absolutely years. Again, I was definitely one of those people that was just like, no, something's weird if they've put her in there and closed the lid and she got through all these alarm doors. How the heck did she do that? Like, she was petite. There's no way that she could lift that lid. But there's people who think that there was a more paranormal side to things. The whole case is really similar to a film that came out in 2005. So this was, I can't go, like 8 years before this happened. It's called Dark Water, and one of the characters in it is called Cecilia, which is like the Cecil Hotel. The water runs brown and there's a body in the water tank. The lift malfunctions at one point and they're wearing like extremely similar outfits. That's all really strange, but maybe just a coincidence. An even stranger coincidence was that there was an outbreak of tuberculosis. I can't say that, tuberculosis. TB. There was an outbreak of TB on Skid Row, and the test that they used to test for this was called the Lam Elisa. I'll write what it stands for on the screen. There is no way, I can't pronounce tuberculosis. Can't pronounce that, there's no way I'm going to be able to that. Why can't I talk? And it wasn't named after her. That was just a coincidence. Really odd. That is something that creeps me out a little bit. Later on in the year, Elisa's parents tried to sue the Cecil Hotel because of the fact that their daughter was just able to freely walk up to a water tank and get in it without any kind of safety being in place. But the hotel argued that there was no way that they would know she was going to do that, and that place was off limits to guests, so she wasn't meant to be up there, and she passed away, so they won that case. The Cecil Hotel has now closed and no one really knows what's going to become of the building, whether it's going to be another hotel or if it's going to be something completely different. So that is the case of Elisa Lam. I unfortunately do think that it was an episode that she was having, and maybe she just got in and not realised how far away it was from the top and that she wasn't able to get out, or maybe she was taking a picture and fell. But then I also kind of hate myself for saying that because someone might have done this to her. Yeah, it's really sad, the fact that she was obviously struggling. She went on this trip, she was probably like thinking, oh, this is going to be a really fresh start. And another thing that can throw people off when people say that this might be a suicide, that she was buying presents for people. She had, you know, another place that she was going to visit afterwards. But maybe this was just a last minute decision if it was a suicide. Let me know what you think happened in the comments. If, you know, if you're more kind of paranormal minded, go for it. Let me know what you thought. Just please remember that Elisa is, you know, a real person. She's got family, and yeah, just keep that in mind with all the cases. I mean, everyone always does, but yeah. Thank you so much for watching this one. I've been dying to speak to you all about it. I upload a new true crime video every single Sunday, so please like and subscribe, all the good stuff if you want to see more of those, and click the notification bell if you want to be notified when I upload anything. If you haven't already, please follow me on Twitter and Instagram because it's just nice to have people over there. And yeah, that's it. I will see you in my next one.